Hi, my name's Olivia Trinalden. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a writer for Nextdoor Ari. I'm here with Cornelia. Hi, Cornelia. How are you?
Hi, Olivia. Yeah, I'm Cornelia van Rijswijk. My pronouns are she, her, and I was part of Next to Ari's Cody 22 online residency. And I did that for 6 weeks. And part of that residency involved me creating an interactive website that I got to share with everybody last week.
Yes, and the website is gorgeous. I've been privileged enough to sort of see you work on it a little bit behind the scenes, and it's been really, really cool seeing your process and seeing this project come to life. Um, and I feel like we really understood each other's creative practice as well, which has really helped in writing the essay for the exhibition and then seeing it all come to life. I feel like it's been a really, really cool process.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to ask you a few basic questions for the Nextdoor readers and watchers. Cornelia, what's your sort of background history? What brought you into this current moment in your creative practice?
Yeah, so my background sees me working in a bit of fashion, running my own business, that, and a lot of the themes I explored in that when I was younger also explored like online, social media, subcultures that existed online. And I think like this was back in 2010, and that never sort of left me. I've always had an interest in how people communicate, like using technology, like yeah, how we can use technology in the creative process. And I had a bit of a hiatus, and kind of maybe in the last 4 years, I've gotten back into my creative practice again and found my voice again, and still needing to apply technology in my practice somehow. I just keep going back.
And it's amazing that you have come back because your work is so stunning. I mean, I've taken one of your 3D rendered objects as my Zoom background today.
Yeah.
And one thing that I never get tired of looking at these objects is how tactile they are, but I will never ever be able to actually touch them.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting sort of state to be in as an artist as well, is like creating these objects that can only be absorbed through the screen, or um, potentially through AR in the future, which I want to get into. And yeah, the idea that they just sort of exist digitally and you can't really pluck them out from your screens. So they only exist sort of in that sort of abstract sense, like on your screen or on my external hard drive or inside my head, unless I
Yeah.
do that with other people and then they get to sort of um, play around with that as well. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and they're really fun, like little objects to make too. I use like Blender, which is a free software available online. I highly recommend anyone to like learn how to use it. It's brilliant, so much fun, and yeah, just having a lot of time on there sculpting these little forms and sort of getting personal with them and adding maybe a bit of my own personality to them, or yeah, and then kind of deciding when I feel like they're ready. And that can take maybe a few minutes, maybe a few hours, and then I get to export them and share them with the world.
Which is amazing. can we talk a little bit about like that medium? Like, what does it really look like when you're sculpting these digital objects? How does that sort of work in the digital realm?
Yeah, so it's sort of it's really funny because when you start like sculpting, you see the mesh that surrounds this object that you're creating, and the more you mess around, the more complex the mesh gets. And yeah, once you like keep applying like maybe different services or like different tools that you can use in that software, it's like the possibilities are so endless, and like little changes or little modifications can just completely change the output. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to like see these objects as like a mesh, and then you can like also see them as just like a gray lump with no lighting, with no textures applied. And then as soon as you like kind of put in those aspects, how we can perceive things in real life, like, you know, we can't see without there being like light shining on to an object. So in this software, you can like play around with the lighting and how the light bounces off the object, and then sort of like playing around with that. And just to give it that sort of like real world tactile quality, if that makes sense. So I think, yeah, it's just, I think it's the fun of like making something look like it could be real, but it just so isn't. It's just, it's like, it's an illusion, it's magic, it's
Oh, I like illusion. That's a great way. I was talking with someone about your work recently, and I was explaining how these these objects, they kind of only exist as long as we can see them and
yeah.
remember them.
Mm-hmm.
And if your website, for example, if it shut down, if your hard drive got destroyed, I think we enter such an interesting, like, existential
Oh yeah.
realm there. Do they still exist because we perceive them? Do they
Yeah.
not? How do we interact with these objects?
Mm-hmm.
So
Where
many questions and
yeah,
no answers.
it's, yeah, it's so interesting. And what interested me as well about um well, like what you just brought up, and with the residency is you know, they want to archive like the website. So it's nice to think that in some way that is going to be archived, and in some vicinity it can always be accessed, even if my hard drive one day will break. And I know one of my hard drives broke last September, which was devastating, and I lost a lot of work. So I know that feeling of like losing something. And maybe, you know, because that was so traumatic, maybe that also fed into this project too, of like, well, I don't know, kind of like making peace with the fact, like, it's okay. I might lose everything, but it's okay, because I know that I made it, and I know like that these things exist, and that's all I need. That's all I need
Yeah,
to know.
absolutely. You're the god of these objects. They
Yeah.
exist as long as you'd like them to.
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit about your use of technology, coming from fashion into the, you know, the visual arts? How did was technology part of your fashion practice, or is that something that
Yeah, it
only
was more
recently come through for you?
of, when in the fashion practice, it was more about sort of like surface pattern design applied to like textile, which was very like uh I forgot the term they used back then. It was like the new digital aesthetic or something like that. And I guess back then it was more to do with like how the aesthetics could be like worn and adorned on your body, whereas now my interests lie in like AI, like artificial intelligence, how that's coming into play. So how that's coming into play in our like lives and our modern lives. And it's like being introduced in so many areas that we like people don't even think about, you know, like there's like you might think you're chatting to somebody in like the chat box on like a a website where you're purchasing something, but it's just like an AI chatbot that you're talking to.
Yeah.
There's I think like neural voice filters. So some voices that you're listening to, they're like created through AI, and that interests me. So past work, I did an exhibition last year at Kepka called Hyperreal, and that was using like my chats with AI chatbots as like I was having like these discussions, like philosophical discussions, mostly existential, because you know I always teetered towards that. And based off these discussions and conversations that I had like documented, I sort of used the AI as like the artist's muse, and then created paintings based off these conversations. And then the paintings were based on like digitally generated images created using just like a digital editing software. So fusing those things together. So yeah, that was interesting to bring that work, that aspect into my work. So that happened, yeah, like 2020 is when I really got thinking about that. And I think more recently with this project, sort of there are elements of still being interested in AI, but I feel like I'm more interested in maybe creating, definitely the objects, but creating like environments, sort of safe environments, maybe like an escape from like where we're at as a society. Like it just feels like everything's quite overwhelming, like the digital.
We've got a special guest. Sorry.
Hello. Hello.
Getting very offended she's not getting all the attention.
Where was my mind?
Sorry.
Yeah,
so creating a safe space, like a safe environment, a safe world.
Because I feel like there's a lot of anxiety around social media, and anxiety around technology, anxiety around some people not being able to use like technology, like digital literacy, and you know, sort of digital inequalities. And I just maybe wanted to create, I want to focus on creating something that can like maybe gently introduce people that aren't so like sort of that don't really know about these things, and just like introduce it to them in a way that's kind of fun and safe and isn't like overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's where I see my practice going in the future. And I just want, you don't want to leave anyone out, Olivia.
Very true. And I think
like,
we don't talk about internet
know,
literacy enough, actually. I think internet literacy
yeah.
is a really important issue, and I really don't think we talk about it enough. My dad does like internet classes with like senior citizens, and it is a little bit shocking to see how people that haven't grown up on the internet don't really understand it, and as a result they can be quite vulnerable on the internet.
Yeah.
There's really no, you know, it's integrated into like all of these very, very major elements of our lives: banking, health. You know, I mean, let's just think about the COVID QR codes and proof of vax recently. So many people didn't have the internet literacy to figure out how to produce that, and that created quite an inequality,
I think so. And you know, like the interfaces for, you know, like the computer interfaces or the programs or applications, they can be like really off-putting to like some people, or they can be like quite challenging or difficult to use with for people with like sensory, cognitive, or physical disabilities too. And like I suppose as well, like for those older that didn't receive that education when they were younger, yeah, it's like leaving a lot of people out, and we just need to find like a solution in these technological advancements to like make sure that no one's left, yeah, that no one's left behind. Yeah. But
so a great segue from that, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A great segue from that though is, you know, what role does accessibility have in your practice? Because I know we talked a lot about accessibility while you were sort of crafting your website. Where does that sit in your broader practice?
Yeah, so I feel like the accessibility aspect I've really become interested in the last 3 months. Like I've got like ADHD. I might be on like the ASD spectrum, and noticing like you know, kind of becoming at one with my emotional states, and like yeah, realizing that it's just not fair that a lot of people aren't thought of in design. Some, you know, like, because I did graphic design as well, and it's just made me like really rethink everything. And maybe it's because of my own personal experience, and maybe it's, I'm thankful that I have come to like notice these things, because it's given my practice so much more of a like an understanding, or like a need for, I know what it is I need to do now. I feel like maybe I have like this focus area of, you know, I'm able to like help myself, but I feel like I should be able to help others, and wanting to share like the things that help me, and hoping that that might also soothe other people. So if I can find joy in the things that I make, maybe somebody else might too. And
one of my favorite things about your website as well are that if most or all of the resources that you used are free access.
Yeah
as well. That's great.
Yeah, and yeah, it's important to not gatekeep knowledge, and you want to, I feel like there should be more transparency in like what you're using, how you're using it, like what your influences are. I don't know, for someone like me, it just feels like when I navigate the world, I'm just collecting little bits of information and trying to solve this huge puzzle, and I just don't know how to solve the puzzle. I just can't see certain parts of it. And I don't know, I guess that's my offering, to like maybe give somebody else that needs help like extra pieces of that puzzle to help them understand maybe their own practice, their own understanding of like what accessibility means to them. But yeah, sharing is caring.
Absolutely, it is. I love what you said about not gatekeeping knowledge. I think that is something that everyone needs to be focusing on going forward. Everybody deserves an accessible and inclusive space, whether that be digital, real life, imagined. You know, it's just about making people feel welcome and valued wherever they are.
For sure. And not be stuck behind a paywall to access information, which happens so often and isn't fair. But
that's very, very true.
Another discussion for another day.
Yes, let's not get into capitalism today. I think I'm not sure we've got the time.
No.
I wish we did have the time though. So what are your future plans going forward? Your exhibition is on the Next Door ARI website until when? Sorry, is it the 14th?
The exhibition is running until online until the 20th of May.
Oh, I was way off. Sorry.
20th of May. So yeah, 9 days away from time of recording. So yeah, excited for that. And who knows, maybe the shapes will feature in other areas, in other work. I really wanted to, a few weeks ago, I made like my first face filter on Instagram.
Oh,
So I really want to like learn more about that and create like fun filters, just to play around with. And I'm gonna get into like augmented like reality, and so people that have phones, smartphones, can like scan a QR code, or sort of interact with these objects in like a space, and like kind of imagine what they would be like in like spaces. And then yeah, and maybe more like animation, or just like creating little snippets of film using any objects that I create. So definitely more like focus driven, exploring that, but then also solving that problem of like how can that be like accessible, like considering all those like factors into like how the work is presented.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Oh,
Let's have a look at your
let's do that.
website, shall we? Hold on. There
Oh,
we go. Your body of work, which has a very existential title, did you want to discuss maybe the meaning of your exhibition title and introduce the website a little bit, and maybe we can have a little scroll through?
yeah. So the exhibition title is "It Is Not There, It Never Was." And I guess that title sort of for me means like my relationship with these objects, and sort of their sort of how delicate and fragile they are, in how they are perceived, or how in like what space they sort of take up, because technically they don't really, I don't know, do they exist? I don't, maybe they don't, they could
That's
be
the
lost.
question, isn't
um,
it?
the website's going to be archived. I don't know in what way people can access that in the future, like depending on how it's going to be archived, if it's still going to be like interactive in that capacity, or if it'll just be images. It's sort of like it feels like a one-off sort of like um thing of, you've only got like until the 20th, 9 days to like absorb all of these object shapes um in the way that they are presented. And yeah, I think
No,
that,
it's great because I think we also think of the internet as permanent and forever. At least there's always been that. I mean, growing up on the internet, it's drilled into you. Oh, be careful what you put on the internet. It's there forever. It's there forever. It's there forever. But is it really?
really,
I mean, your work, it could disappear theoretically.
yeah, um
Um,
it's pretty interesting, like so much of like I'm just thinking of like, now that you mentioned that, like past work that has been published online on like online magazines, the links are no longer there, so they no longer exist. And it's so strange because like I might still have like copies of magazines or books that have been published in, and I'll always have those to look through and like see my work like talked about, or like shown in however way they were shown. But then with like the online links, even like using like the Wayback Machine, which is like, I think it's called the Wayback Machine, where you can like view a web page depending, you can like choose a year, so you could pick like 2013, pick the website that you wanted to view on that specific date or year, and you can see what the website looked like then, because it had like captures like in like pages on the internet. I think that's how it works. And yeah, it's just fun. It's just funny, like how I just had another thought, Olivia. Like, what's the future looking like for how are people like historians or I don't know, people wanting to know more about our time now, or the last 20 years of like how we've occupied like this digital space. Like there's some information out there, isn't it? Like some of it has been like saved or like archived, but like so much of it will be gone or lost. And I wonder,
that's something I think about a lot in my own research practice, is that any documented history, maybe this will change with the internet, but in the past, documented history has been written by the victors, right? It's been written and recorded by whoever had the hegemonic voice of the time.
yeah,
You implicitly miss so many perspectives and you miss so much. And I do wonder if maybe historical accounts of 2022, I mean, what will they be filled with, I wonder?
yeah, I
Whose
wonder,
voices?
yeah. And it's interesting how you said, you know, like history is written by the victors, and you wonder like who are like the modern day victors of like the internet. Is it the people that can like afford to like, you know, hold on to your data, or like hold on to like images, conversations, etc. And like what about just the regular folk that, you know, once you pass away, you know, your social media just gets maybe deleted. And I don't know, there's so much to think about.
I know these days you can assign someone to have control over your Facebook account, I think, after you die.
Yeah, I think I chose my sibling to take it over.
I don't think I've chosen anyone, just let it die.
I think I like told her like, I've nominated you, but once I'm gone, I'm nominating you to delete everything before. That makes sense. I was like, I just don't want a trace of me on Facebook.
I feel that. I totally understand that. You go.
I was just thinking about like so I don't know how people socialize on the internet, and like how performative it is, and sometimes what you see it isn't really like a good indication of what real life is. And like, you know, in the future when people are trying to get an understanding of what like our life was like around now, so much of it is like very performative, like only showing like the best aspects, like rose tinted views. And it would be interesting to like see what people in the future will wonder what our time was like.
Yeah. The digital records, I guess, would just record some of the best.
Yeah, it feels
and also
like
some of the worst human
yeah,
experiences.
but I think we're so like preoccupied with like curating our digital footprint. It's like we don't want to actually show like the ugly bits, or
who we actually are. Wow.
so I don't know, somewhere along the lines I feel like yeah, interesting. I feel like
that is really interesting.
Tangent and we're digressing, but it needed to be discussed.
Indeed. Plus, it is a great segue to point out that you do have a residency thought journal on your website that traces a lot of your thinking.
Yes,
So,
just thoughts about. I think when I wrote in this journal or typed it out, I was just sort of just finished like a a 3D modeling session, making the objects for the website, and just like really thinking about what it all means, like what it means to like be creating these things. And yeah, it's just amazing where your brain can take you. And
Absolutely.
it's more like sort of yes.
I found it really enlightening to read, because I read this before your website was finalized. So it was great to really understand your thinking and your process. And before I'd even really seen your objects. So that was a really cool experience for me writing about your work.
Yeah.
And scrolling. I'll just do a little it's at the top, promo of myself. The essay is at the bottom under essay. And you can download it as a PDF as well. So that's my promo for myself. But yeah, Cornelia, it's been really great chatting with you just throughout your residency and seeing this project coming to life. And I feel very privileged to have been able to be part of this dialogue with you, because I think it's so crucial and so important.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful.
Thanks, Olivia. It's been lovely chatting with you this evening. I hope I answered all your questions well, and it was fun having a quick discussion about all the other things. And yeah, maybe we should just have a chat by ourselves another time about everything else. But
maybe we should. Who knows how long it would take.
Brilliant.
Yeah. We might call it a day then, shall we? Because it's, what is it, 6:45 on a Wednesday evening on a rainy Brisbane night. But thank you so much for your time, Cornelia. I've had such a blast chatting with you this evening, and all of our other conversations about your work. It's been really enlightening.
Brilliant. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.